At my grandson's baptism, my daughter-in-law said, "You've been an absent grandmother your whole life and never did anything for your grandkids." She didn't know I was the one who paid for the entire private maternity care. Your presence here means so much to me. Watch until the end and leave a comment telling me which city you're watching from. I want to see how far my story has reached. You've been an absent grandmother your entire life, and you've never done anything for your grandchildren. Caroline's words sliced through the air at Thomas's baptism, turning what should have been a joyful family celebration into a moment of public humiliation. I stood frozen in the church reception hall, my hands still clutching the silver cross necklace I'd brought as a gift. The room fell silent. Dozens of eyes turned toward me, friends, family members, even the pastor. My daughter Jennifer shifted uncomfortably beside her husband but said nothing. The baby in Caroline's arms, my precious grandson Thomas, remained blissfully unaware of the tension surrounding him. The words caught in my throat. What could I say? That I had secretly paid $28,000 for Caroline's private maternity care? That I had been writing checks for years, helping them in ways they never knew? "Mom," Jennifer finally spoke, her voice barely audible. "Maybe we should talk about this later." Caroline's eyes narrowed. "There's nothing to talk about. Thomas deserves a grandmother who's actually present in his life, not someone who shows up for appearances." I felt my hands trembling. At 65, I had weathered many storms, a difficult divorce, financial struggles, health scares, but nothing had prepared me for this knife to the heart, especially when I knew the truth. "I should go," I whispered, placing the silver necklace on the gift table. Without waiting for a response, I turned and walked out, my sensible heels clicking against the polished church floor. Outside, the May sunshine felt like a mockery. I fumbled for my car keys, desperate to escape before the tears came. I had always prided myself on my dignity, my composure. I wouldn't let them see me break. Once inside my 10-year-old Buick, the dam burst. Tears streamed down my face as I gripped the steering wheel, my wedding ring-free left hand a reminder of all the years I'd spent on my own. "Why?" I whispered to the empty car. "Why do they think I've done nothing?" The truth was a heavy burden I'd carried silently. When Jennifer announced her pregnancy, I had immediately contacted the private maternity center. I remembered the conversation clearly. "I'd like to pay for my daughter's care," I had told the administrator. "But I don't want her to know. Can we arrange that?" I had used most of my retirement savings to ensure Jennifer had the best care possible. I wanted her to have what I never did: comfort, security, specialized attention. But I had insisted my name stay off any paperwork they would see. "It's a gift," I had explained. "One without strings or expectations." Perhaps that had been my mistake, one of many. Years of silent support, never wanting recognition, believing that love meant giving without acknowledgement. As I drove home to my modest 2-bedroom condo, the memories flooded back. The down payment I had helped with for their house. The car payments I had quietly covered when Jennifer lost her job 3 years ago. The college fund I had started for Thomas the day Jennifer told me she was pregnant. All given in silence. All apparently invisible. At home, I sank into my worn armchair, the one my late mother had gifted me before she passed. My phone buzzed, a text from my friend Margaret. How was the baptism? I couldn't bring myself to respond. How could I explain the wound that had been opened today? How could I describe the pain of being called absent when I had sacrificed so much? The framed photo of Thomas on my side table seemed to watch me with innocent eyes. I had only held him 3 times since his birth 4 months ago. Not for lack of trying, but because there was always some reason I couldn't visit. Thomas was sleeping, Caroline was tired, Jennifer was busy. I picked up the photo, running my finger over his tiny face. What did I do wrong? I whispered. The question hung in the air, unanswered. The silence in my home, a silence I had once found peaceful, now felt like an echo of the emptiness Caroline had accused me of. For the first time, I wondered if my approach to love had been fundamentally flawed. If giving without recognition had somehow rendered me truly invisible in their eyes. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across my living room. I hadn't eaten since breakfast, but hunger was the furthest thing from my mind. Tomorrow, I would pick up the pieces. Tomorrow, I would figure out how to move forward. But tonight, I allowed myself to feel the full weight of Caroline's accusation and my daughter's silent complicity. I had never felt more alone. 3 days after the baptism, I still hadn't heard from Jennifer. No apology, no explanation, not even a perfunctory text. I wasn't surprised, just disappointed. Our relationship had been walking on eggshells for years. I was watering my small collection of houseplants when Margaret arrived, carrying a bag from our favorite bakery. "I brought reinforcements," she announced, holding up the bag. "Cinnamon rolls. And don't try to tell me you're not hungry. I know you haven't been eating." I managed a weak smile. Margaret had been my rock since we met at a community college course 15 years ago. We had bonded over being divorced women starting over in our 50s. "I can't stop replaying it in my head," I admitted as we settled at my small kitchen table. The way Caroline looked at me, like I was nothing. And Jennifer just stood there. Margaret reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Tell me about Jennifer. You've always skimmed over the rough patches." I sighed, picking at my cinnamon roll. The truth was, Jennifer and I had a complicated history that began the day her father walked out on us. When Robert left, Jennifer was 12, I began. One day he was there, the next he was gone, moved in with his secretary, the oldest cliché in the book. Margaret nodded. She'd heard parts of this story before. I had been a stay-at-home mom. Suddenly, I needed to support us both. I took 2 jobs, receptionist during the day, waitressing at night. Jennifer went from having a mother who was always there to barely seeing me. I remembered those early days vividly, the bone-deep exhaustion, coming home to find Jennifer already asleep, leaving before she woke up. The birthday parties I missed because I couldn't get time off. The school plays I arrived late to, slipping into the back row still wearing my waitress uniform. I thought she understood I was doing it for us, I continued. But to a 12-year-old girl who just lost her father, it must have felt like both parents abandoned her. Jennifer grew distant, rebellious. By 16, our conversations consisted mainly of arguments. I was too strict, too absent, too focused on money. She couldn't see that everything I did was to keep a roof over our heads, food on the table, and money for her college fund. The irony is, I told Margaret, I worked so hard to give her financial security, but what she needed was my presence. "You did what you had to do," Margaret insisted. Maybe. But I wonder if I could have done things differently. Found more balance somehow. When Jennifer met Mark in college, I had hoped things would improve. He was steady, kind, from a good family. But then came Caroline, his younger sister. From the moment they met, Caroline and Jennifer became inseparable, I explained. Caroline's family was everything ours wasn't, intact, affluent, picture perfect. Jennifer was enchanted. Margaret frowned. "And Caroline turned her against you?" "Not directly. But she had opinions about everything, including me. I was overworking myself. I was too focused on saving. I wasn't living in the moment enough." The more time Jennifer spent with Caroline's family, the more our relationship deteriorated. Every dinner at their sprawling suburban home, every holiday celebration, every family tradition emphasized what Jennifer felt she had missed. When Jennifer and Mark got married, Caroline was the maid of honor. She gave this speech about how Jennifer had finally found the family she deserved. The memory still stung. Everyone thought it was so touching. But I was sitting there thinking, what about me? Wasn't I family too? Margaret shook her head. "That's cruel. The worst part is, I don't think Caroline even realizes how hurtful she is. She genuinely believes she's been Jennifer's savior." I explained how, after the wedding, I tried to stay connected with Jennifer. I invited them to dinners, offered to help when they bought their first house, tried to be present without being intrusive. But there was always a wall between us, reinforced by Caroline's constant presence. When Jennifer announced her pregnancy, I saw it as a chance to repair our relationship. I would be the grandmother I wished my mother could have been for Jennifer. That's why I paid for the maternity care, I said. I wanted to give her something meaningful, something that showed how much I cared. But I didn't want it to seem like I was trying to buy her love. So you did it anonymously, Margaret said, understanding dawning on her face. I thought it was the right thing to do. Selfless, you know. But now. I trailed off, the full weight of Caroline's accusation still fresh. Margaret sat back, studying me. Deborah, has it occurred to you that by hiding your generosity, you've been enabling their perception of you as uninvolved? The question hit me like a slap. Had my silence been a mistake? Had my attempts to love without recognition only reinforced their belief that I wasn't there for them? I never thought of it that way, I admitted quietly. The late afternoon sun streamed through my kitchen window, illuminating the faded photographs on my refrigerator. Jennifer at her high school graduation, her wedding day, a rare moment when she had let me take a picture of her pregnant belly. All milestones where I had been present physically but had somehow remained a stranger to my own daughter. What now? Margaret asked gently. I looked at the phone I had been checking compulsively for days, hoping for a call that never came. I don't know, I whispered, a lump forming in my throat. I really don't know. A week passed, then two. The silence from Jennifer grew heavier each day. I tried to keep busy, volunteering at the community library, attending my weekly water aerobics class, meeting Margaret for coffee. But the wound from Thomas's baptism refused to heal. One evening as I balanced my checkbook, I found myself staring at the latest automatic transfer to Thomas's college fund. $500 every month since before he was born. Money that Jennifer and Mark didn't know about, tucked away for a future they probably assumed they'd have to fund themselves. My financial records told a story different from the one Caroline had so confidently proclaimed at the church. Looking at the neat columns of numbers, I saw years of silent support, $15,000 toward their house down payment, listed in my ledger as Jennifer home gift, $7,200 for car payments when Jennifer lost her job, the maternity care, and countless smaller expenses. I slid open my desk drawer and pulled out a worn leather photo album. Inside were pictures of Jennifer growing up, her first steps, first day of school, high school graduation. I'd been there for all those moments, camera in hand. There were fewer photos after Robert left, a visual record of my increasing absence. The pages grew sparser still after Jennifer met Mark and Caroline. My phone buzzed with a text from Margaret, lunch tomorrow? I'm worried about you. I typed back, I'm fine. Just thinking. Lunch sounds good. The next day at our favorite cafe, Margaret listened as I recounted my evening of financial archaeology. I added it all up, I said, stirring my untouched soup. Over $65,000 in the last 5 years alone. Not counting Thomas's college fund. Margaret's eyebrows shot up. That's substantial. And they have no idea? Jennifer knows about some of it, the house down payment, for instance. But not the extent. I never wanted her to feel indebted to me. That's quite a burden to carry alone, Margaret said carefully. I looked up from my soup. What do you mean? All this giving without acknowledgement. Don't you ever want credit for what you've done? I'd never thought of it that way. It's not about credit. It's about love. Is it? Margaret challenged. Or is it about proving something to yourself? That you're a good mother despite working all those years? That you're valuable to them even if they don't see it? Her words stung because they contained a truth I hadn't been ready to face. Maybe, I admitted. But isn't that what mothers do? Give without expecting anything in return? Margaret reached across the table and took my hand. There's giving, and then there's this. You're letting them believe a version of you that isn't true. How can Jennifer appreciate what you've done if she doesn't know about it? I pulled my hand away, suddenly defensive. Are you saying Caroline is right? That I've been absent? No, Margaret said firmly. I'm saying there's a difference between physically being there and emotionally being present. And there's a difference between generous giving and, well, invisible giving. I sat back, considering her words. Had my reluctance to be acknowledged been about selflessness, or was it something else? Fear of rejection? Fear that even my financial support wouldn't be enough to bridge the gap between us? I think, Margaret continued gently, that sometimes when we give in secret, we protect ourselves from the possibility that our giving might not be enough. That it might be rejected or criticized. The truth of her words hit me like a physical blow. By giving anonymously, I had been safeguarding myself from the very rejection I feared most, that even my sacrifices wouldn't earn Jennifer's love. What do I do now? I asked, my voice small. Before Margaret could answer, my phone rang. Jennifer's name flashed on the screen. My heart leaped to my throat. It's her, I whispered, showing Margaret the screen. Answer it, she urged. With trembling fingers, I accepted the call. Jennifer? Mom. Her voice sounded strained. I need to ask you something. Not, I'm sorry. Not, how are you? Just a direct move to whatever she needed. I steeled myself. Of course, honey. What is it? Mark and I are thinking about renovating the kitchen. The contractor wants half up front, and we're a little short this month. I was wondering if maybe you could help. My mind raced. Another request for financial help, with no acknowledgement of what happened at the baptism or the hurt her silence had caused. Margaret watched me intently, her expression clear. This is your moment to decide. Jennifer, I said slowly, I think we need to talk about what happened at Thomas's baptism first. The line went quiet for so long I thought she might have hung up. Mom, she finally said, I really don't want to get into that right now. Caroline was just having a bad day. A bad day, I repeated, the words hollow. And what about you? Do you agree with what she said? Another pause. Look, if you don't want to help with the kitchen, just say so. I closed my eyes, gathering my strength. I'm not saying that. I'm asking for a conversation before we talk about money. Fine, Jennifer snapped. Never mind. I'll figure it out. The line went dead. Margaret looked at me sympathetically. That was brave. Was it? It didn't feel brave. It felt terrifying. For the first time in our adult relationship, I had refused to simply give without question. I had asked for something in return, acknowledgement, conversation, recognition. What happens now? I whispered. Now, Margaret said, you wait. And you decide what kind of relationship you actually want with your daughter, not just what kind you'll settle for. I nodded slowly, a strange mix of dread and hope settling in my chest. Something had shifted, and there was no going back. 3 days after our phone call, Jennifer still hadn't reached out. I went about my routine, grocery shopping, my weekly bridge game, watering my plants, all while carrying a heaviness that made even simple tasks exhausting. I was just settling in with a book when my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, and for a brief moment, I considered not answering. But curiosity got the better of me. When I opened the door, Jennifer stood there, her face tight with worry. In her arms was Thomas, fussing and red-faced. Mom, she said, her voice strained. I need your help. I stepped back to let them in, shock and concern battling inside me. What's wrong? Is Thomas okay? He has a fever, Jennifer explained, bouncing him gently. Mark's out of town, and Caroline was supposed to watch him while I go to an important work meeting, but she canceled at the last minute. Of course. She needed a babysitter, not a conversation. I'm sorry to just show up, she continued, not meeting my eyes. But I didn't know who else to call. I reached for Thomas, and he came to me willingly, his little body hot against mine. Of course I'll watch him. How high is his fever? 101.3. I gave him some children's Tylenol about an hour ago. She hurriedly placed his diaper bag on my couch. All his stuff is in here. I should be back by 3 o'clock. She was already backing toward the door, clearly eager to leave. Jennifer, I said firmly. We still need to talk about what happened at the baptism. She sighed, checking her watch. Mom, I really don't have time for this right now. I'm already late. When, then? Because it seems like there's never a good time to discuss how I'm apparently such a terrible grandmother. Jennifer's face flushed. That's not fair. Caroline was just having a bad day. I finished for her. That doesn't excuse public humiliation. And it doesn't excuse you standing by and saying nothing. Thomas whimpered in my arms, and I automatically began swaying, a motion that came back to me as naturally as breathing. He settled against my shoulder. Jennifer watched, something unreadable crossing her face. You're good with him. I was good with you, too, I said softly. Even when I had to work 2 jobs to keep us afloat. She looked away. I have to go. We'll talk when I get back. After she left, I settled on the couch with Thomas. His fever seemed to be coming down, his fussing replaced by curious exploration of my necklace. I spoke to him softly, telling him stories about when his mother was small. You have her eyes, I told him. And her determination. She was always so strong-willed, even as a tiny thing. As the morning progressed, Thomas grew sleepy. I gently laid him down in the portable crib Jennifer had brought, covering him with a light blanket. While he napped, I decided to look for the children's book I'd bought him, one that had been Jennifer's favorite when she was small. I remembered putting it in my office. In my search, I accidentally knocked over the diaper bag, spilling its contents across the floor. As I gathered everything up, a letter caught my eye. It was addressed to Jennifer and Mark, from Meadowbrook Maternity Center, the private facility where Jennifer had delivered Thomas. I shouldn't have looked. But there, in bold letters at the top of the page, was a notice: final payment received, account paid in full. My heart raced. I knew exactly what this was: confirmation of the final payment I had made to cover Jennifer's maternity care. But why was it in her diaper bag? Had they discovered who had really paid? I scanned the letter, stopping cold when I reached a paragraph near the bottom. We understand your confusion regarding the anonymous benefactor who covered your maternity expenses. While we respect the wishes of donors to remain anonymous, we can confirm that all payments were made by the same individual, beginning in January of last year. They knew someone had paid. They just didn't know it was me. I carefully replaced the letter in the bag, my mind spinning. Jennifer had been carrying this around. Was she trying to figure out who had helped them? Did she have suspicions? When Thomas woke, I fed him the lunch Jennifer had packed and read him stories. He was an alert, responsive baby, giggling at my silly voices and reaching for my face with his pudgy hands. By the time Jennifer returned, Thomas's fever was gone, and he was happily playing with a soft toy on my living room rug. How was he? She asked, kneeling to check him. Perfect, I replied. His fever broke around noon. He's been eating and playing normally since. Jennifer gathered Thomas into her arms, relief evident on her face. Thank you for watching him. I'm his grandmother, I said simply. It's what I do. As she packed up his things, I debated whether to mention the letter. Would it make things worse? Or was this the opening I needed? Jennifer, I began hesitantly. When I was picking up Thomas's things, I accidentally saw a letter from Meadowbrook. She froze. You went through my bag? No, it fell over. The letter was right on top. I took a deep breath. You know someone paid for your maternity care, don't you? She stood slowly, Thomas on her hip. How did you know about that? The moment of truth had arrived. Because it was me. I paid for everything. Jennifer stared at me, her expression shifting from confusion to disbelief. That's not possible. It was over $25,000. 28,000, actually, I corrected gently. I wanted you to have the best care possible. But how? You're on a fixed income. I used most of my retirement savings, I admitted. It was worth it to me. She sank onto the couch, still clutching Thomas. Why wouldn't you tell me? I wanted it to be a gift without strings or expectations. I didn't want you to feel obligated to me. So all this time. She trailed off, her eyes widening as realization dawned. What else have you done that I don't know about? I hesitated, then decided the time for secrets was past. I'd been putting $500 a month into a college fund for Thomas since before he was born. Jennifer's hand flew to her mouth. Mom. And I paid off the last 6 car payments when you lost your job 3 years ago. Tears welled in her eyes. I thought that was the bank giving us an extension. I shook my head. It was me. We sat in silence, the weight of these revelations hanging between us. Finally, Jennifer spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Caroline was wrong, wasn't she? About you being absent? Yes, I said simply. She was wrong. Thomas reached for me, and without thinking, Jennifer passed him into my arms. He settled against my chest with a contented sigh, as if he had always belonged there. We need to talk, Jennifer said. Really talk? I nodded, holding her son, my grandson, close. Yes. We do. Jennifer and I agreed to meet the following Sunday. She would come alone, without Thomas or Mark, so we could truly talk. The week crawled by, my mind constantly replaying the shocked look on her face when I revealed I had paid for her maternity care. When Sunday finally arrived, I spent the morning nervously cleaning my already tidy condo and preparing a light lunch: chicken salad sandwiches, fresh fruit, and lemonade. Simple comfort food from Jennifer's childhood. She arrived promptly at noon, her expression guarded but not hostile. I noticed she'd brought a large tote bag. I made lunch, I offered, gesturing toward the kitchen. Thanks, Mom. She followed me, setting her bag on an empty chair. We ate in uncomfortable silence for several minutes, both of us searching for where to begin. Finally, Jennifer spoke. I've been thinking a lot about what you told me, she said, setting down her sandwich. About the maternity care, the college fund, everything. I nodded, waiting for her to continue. I talked to Mark about it. He was shocked. We both were. She looked at me directly. Why, Mom? Why keep all that a secret? I took a sip of lemonade, considering my words carefully. I guess I thought it was the right thing to do. That love meant giving without needing acknowledgement. But that doesn't make sense, Jennifer countered. You let us believe you weren't supporting us when you were doing exactly that. I know it sounds contradictory, I admitted. Maybe part of me was afraid. Afraid of what? That it wouldn't be enough, I said softly. That even with everything I could give, you would still see me as lacking. Jennifer's expression softened slightly. Because of when Dad left? I nodded. I've always worried that I failed you then. That all those hours I worked, all those school events I missed, that you never forgave me for not being there enough. I was angry back then, Jennifer acknowledged. I didn't understand why you had to work so much. I just knew you weren't around when I needed you. The familiar pain twisted in my chest. I was trying to keep us afloat. I know that now, she said. But as a kid, I just felt abandoned. First Dad left, then you were barely home. She paused. And Caroline's family seemed so perfect in comparison. There it was, the crux of our estrangement. Caroline's family never struggled financially, I pointed out. They never had to choose between paying the mortgage and attending a school play. I know. But they were always there for each other. At least, that's how it looked from the outside. Jennifer reached for her tote bag and pulled out a manila folder. After our talk, I started going through some old papers at home. I found these. She slid several documents across the table. I recognized them immediately: bank statements, payment confirmations, receipts. You kept records of everything you've done for us, she said. I needed to track my expenses, I explained, embarrassed that she had found my meticulous accounting. There's so much here, Mom. Her voice cracked slightly. The house down payment, the car payments, medical bills I don't even remember having. I shrugged uncomfortably. You needed help. But we never really thanked you. Not properly. She looked down at her hands. And then Caroline said those things at the baptism. Yes, I said. That hurt deeply. Jennifer winced. I should have said something. I should have defended you. Why didn't you? The question had been burning inside me for weeks. She was quiet for a long moment. Because part of me believed her, she finally admitted. I've spent so many years seeing you through this distorted lens. As the mother who was always working, always focused on money. Caroline reinforced that view. She doesn't know me, I said firmly. No, she doesn't. Jennifer met my gaze. And maybe I don't either. Not really. The admission hung between us, painful but honest. Jennifer continued, after you told me about the maternity care, I confronted Caroline. I showed her the evidence of everything you've done for us. My stomach tightened. What did she say? She got defensive at first. Said you were trying to buy my affection. Jennifer shook her head. But then she broke down. She admitted something I never knew. What? That her own mother abandoned her when she was 8. Just walked out one day and never came back. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. Her stepmom was the one who raised her, who created that perfect family I was so envious of. Caroline has been projecting her own pain onto our relationship. I felt a rush of unexpected compassion for Caroline. That explains a lot. It doesn't excuse what she said, Jennifer added quickly. But it helps me understand why she's been so hostile toward you. I took a deep breath. And what about you, Jennifer? What do you feel? She was quiet for a long time, gathering her thoughts. I feel like I've been unfair to you. For years, I've held on to this image of you as this emotionally distant, work-obsessed mother. I used that to justify keeping you at arm's length, even from Thomas. Tears pricked at my eyes. I never wanted to be distant. I know that now, she said softly. I've been looking at our relationship through the eyes of that angry 12-year-old girl. But I'm not that girl anymore, and you deserve better. She reached across the table and took my hand, a gesture so unexpected that I almost pulled away. I want to start over, Mom, she said. Not pretend the past didn't happen, but move forward with the truth in the open. Hope bloomed in my chest, fragile but real. I'd like that. Jennifer squeezed my hand. There's something else I need to tell you. Her tone made me nervous. What is it? I'm pregnant again, she said, a small smile playing at her lips. We just found out last week. Joy rushed through me, followed quickly by concern. Oh, Jennifer. That's wonderful news. This time, she said, I want you to be part of everything. No secrets, no distance. Tears spilled onto my cheeks. I'd like that very much. And Mom? Jennifer added. No more anonymous payments. We appreciate your help, but we need to do this together, openly. I nodded, understanding that this was as much about my healing as it was about hers. The wall of silence I had built around my giving had protected me in some ways, but it had also isolated me from the very connection I craved. I promise, I said. No more secrets. For months after our heart-to-heart, I sat in Jennifer and Mark's living room, carefully painting small wooden blocks for Thomas. At 19 months, he was fascinated by colors and shapes, and I'd been spending every Wednesday afternoon with him since our reconciliation. He'll make a mess of those, Jennifer commented, lowering herself onto the couch. At 5 months pregnant, she developed a gentle roundness that reminded me of my own pregnancies. That's half the fun, I replied, adding a star pattern to one block. Remember those clay beads we made when you were little? The ones that stained our hands purple for days? Jennifer laughed. Mom thought we'd never get clean. The casual reference to her mother-in-law no longer stung as it once had. We'd settled into a new understanding in recent months, not perfect, but honest. Thomas toddled over, reaching for a block. Bah, he declared triumphantly. Yes, that's your block, I agreed, handing him one that had already dried. Grandma made it just for you. The word grandma still felt new on my tongue, but increasingly right. Mom, Jennifer said, her tone turning serious. There's something we need to discuss. I set down my paintbrush, bracing myself. Despite our progress, old habits died hard, and my first instinct was still to expect rejection. Caroline's coming for dinner tonight, she continued. She asked specifically if you would stay. I blinked in surprise. Since our confrontation, Caroline and I had maintained a careful distance. At family gatherings, we were polite but not warm. This direct invitation was unexpected. Did she say why? I asked cautiously. Jennifer shook her head. Just that she wants to talk to you. I told her it was up to you. I considered declining. Things were finally good between Jennifer and me. Why risk upsetting that balance? But the new version of myself, the one who no longer hid behind silent giving, knew better. I'll stay, I decided. When Caroline arrived that evening, the tension was palpable. She looked thinner than I remembered, her usual confident demeanor subdued. Dinner was a stilted affair, with Mark and Jennifer carrying most of the conversation while Caroline and I exchanged occasional pleasantries. Thomas, blissfully unaware of adult complexities, provided welcome distractions with his enthusiastic approach to spaghetti. After we cleared the dishes, Jennifer took Thomas upstairs for his bath, and Mark conveniently remembered some work emails he needed to send, leaving Caroline and me alone at the dining table. Thank you for staying, she began, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her water glass. Jennifer said you wanted to talk, I replied neutrally. Caroline nodded, drawing a deep breath. I owe you an apology. What I said at Thomas's baptism was cruel and untrue. I studied her face, searching for insincerity but finding only discomfort and regret. Jennifer told me everything, she continued. About the maternity care, the college fund. All of it. Those things were between Jennifer and me, I said. They weren't meant to prove anything. But they do prove something, don't they? Caroline countered. They prove I was wrong about you. I remained silent, waiting for her to continue. I've spent years judging you based on my own issues. She looked down at her hands. Jennifer probably told you about my mother. She mentioned it, I acknowledged. Caroline's lips pressed into a thin line. When I met Jennifer in college, I recognized something in her, that same abandonment I felt. We bonded over it. And I suppose She paused, searching for words. I transferred my feelings about my own mother onto you. That must have been very painful, I said quietly. What happened with your mother? Surprise flickered across her face, as if compassion was the last thing she expected from me. It was. It still is. She swallowed hard. But that doesn't excuse what I did, turning Jennifer against you, making assumptions, saying those terrible things at the baptism. I considered her words carefully. Why now, Caroline? Why the apology after all this time? She met my gaze directly for the first time that evening. Because I'm trying to be better. Therapy, actually. When Jennifer confronted me with the truth about everything you've done for them, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I'd been projecting my own pain onto you for years, and it wasn't fair. The admission clearly cost her. I could see the vulnerability beneath her usually polished exterior. I can't promise we'll ever be close, she added. Too much has happened. But I can promise to stop interfering in your relationship with Jennifer and Thomas. I nodded slowly. I appreciate that. And the new baby, Caroline continued. I want things to be different. No competition, no undermining. I'd like that too, I agreed. A tentative peace settled between us, not friendship, but perhaps the beginning of mutual respect. When Jennifer returned downstairs, Thomas freshly bathed and pajama-clad in her arms, she looked between us anxiously. "Everything okay down here?" "We're fine," I assured her, rising to take Thomas from her arms. "Just clearing the air." Later that night, as I prepared to leave, Jennifer pulled me into a hug. "Thank you for staying," she whispered. It meant a lot to Caroline. I didn't do it for Caroline, I admitted. I did it for us. 6 weeks later, my phone rang early on a Saturday morning. Jennifer's number flashed on the screen. "Mom," she said without preamble, "we need your help. Mark's mother was supposed to watch Thomas while we paint the nursery, but she's down with the flu. Could you possibly?" "I'll be there in 30 minutes, I interrupted, already reaching for my purse. I could hear the smile in her voice. "Thank you. We'll order lunch in." "Don't worry about lunch," I said. "I'll bring that homemade vegetable soup you liked as a kid. It's been in the freezer since last week." This time, my giving wasn't silent or invisible. It was acknowledged, appreciated, part of the open relationship we were building day by day. When I arrived at their house, Thomas ran to me with outstretched arms, no hesitation in his greeting. "Gamma," he exclaimed, his newest approximation of grandma. I scooped him up, savoring his warm weight against my chest. Jennifer appeared in the hallway, paint swatches in hand. "I'm torn between serene sky and morning mist for the nursery," she said, holding them out to me. "What do you think?" Such a simple question, and yet it represented everything that had changed. My opinion mattered. My presence mattered. "The morning mist," I suggested. "It has more warmth to it." Jennifer nodded. That's what I was leaning toward too. As I settled Thomas with his toys, I glanced around this home that was gradually becoming familiar territory to me. On the mantel, a new photo had appeared, one of 4 generations: my mother, me, Jennifer, and Thomas. Beside it stood an elegant silver frame containing the ultrasound image of the newest addition to our family. No dramatic revelations had healed our relationship overnight. No tearful Hollywood reconciliation had instantly erased years of misunderstanding. Instead, we were rebuilding slowly, one honest conversation, one Wednesday afternoon, one shared decision at a time. I hadn't realized how heavy the burden of my silent giving had been until I no longer carried it. There was freedom in being seen, truly seen, flaws, contributions, and all. As Thomas brought me a book to read, his little face alight with trust, I understood that this was what I had wanted all along. Not gratitude for financial support, but the simple acknowledgement that I mattered in their lives. The price of silence had been steep. But the rewards of truth, it turned out, were immeasurable.